People do tend to nod off during my readings. I don't know what that is. All right, we will continue. Iole pulled a chair over for herself, and a servant finally brought Dalinar's wine. He took a long, calming drink straight from the jug. "We've been digging at the sister," Iole said, leaning in from Gavilar's other side. "She's a touch vapid." "A touch?" Navani said. "But I'm reasonably sure she's being honest." "The brother seems the same," Gavilar said, rubbing his chin and inspecting Toe, who had crossed the room toward the bar where a servant was bringing him drinks. "He's innocent, white-eyed. I think he's honest, though." "He's a sycophant," Dalinar said with a grunt. "He's a man without a home, Dalinar," Iole said. "No loyalty, at the mercy of those who take him in. And he has only one piece he can play to secure his future. Shardplate. Taken from his homeland of Rira and brought east as far as he could go from his kinsmen, who were reportedly outraged to find such a precious heirloom stolen." "He doesn't have the armor with him," Gavilar said. "He's at least smart enough not to carry it. He'll want assurances before giving it to us. Powerful assurances." "Look how he stares at Dalinar," Navani said. "You've impressed him." She cocked her head. "Are you wet?" Dalinar ran his hand through his hair. Storms. He hadn't been embarrassed for a moment to look out at the crowd of the room, but before her, he found himself blushing. Gavilar laughed. "He went for a stroll." "You're kidding," Iole said, scooting over as Sadeas tromped up to the high table. The bulbous-faced man settled down on the chair next to her, the two of them sitting half on, half off. He dropped a plate on the table, piled with claws and a deep red sauce. Iole attacked them immediately. She was one of the few women Dalinar knew who liked masculine food. "What are we discussing?" Sadeas asked, waving away a master servant with a chair, then draping his arm around his wife's shoulders. "We are talking about getting Dalinar married," Iole said. "What?" Dalinar demanded, choking on a mouthful of wine. "That is the point of this, isn't it?" Iole said. "Toe and his sister, they'll want more than just asylum. They'll want to be part of things, inject their blood into the royal line, so to speak." Dalinar took another long drink. "You could try water sometime, you know, Dalinar," Sadeas said. "I had some rainwater earlier. Everyone stared at me funny." Navani smiled at him. There didn't seem to be enough wine in the world to prepare him for that gaze behind the smile, so piercing, so measuring. "This could be what we need," Gavilar said. "It gives us the appearance of speaking for Alethkar. If people outside the kingdom start coming to me for refuge and treaties, we might be able to sway the remaining high princes. We might be able to unite this country, not through further war, but through sheer weight of legitimacy." A servant at long last dropped by with a knife. Dalinar took it eagerly, and then frowned as the woman walked away. "What?" Navani asked him. "This little thing?" Dalinar asked, pinching the dainty knife between two fingers and dangling it. "How am I supposed to eat a pork steak with this?" "You attack it," Iole said, making a stabbing motion. "Pretend it's some thick-necked guy who's been insulting your biceps." "If someone insulted my biceps, I wouldn't attack them," Dalinar said. "I'd refer them to a physician, because obviously something is wrong with their vision." Navani laughed, a musical sound. "Oh, Dalinar," Sadeas said. "I don't know if there's another person on Roshar who could have said that with a straight face." Dalinar grunted, then tried to maneuver the little knife into cutting the steak. The meat was growing cold, but it still smelled delicious. "What defeated the Sunmaker?" Gavilar suddenly asked. Iole asked him. "Sunmaker," Gavilar said, looking from Navani to Sadeas to Dalinar. "He united Alethkar. Why did he fail to create a lasting empire?" "His kids were too greedy," Dalinar said, sawing at his steak. "Or maybe too weak." "No, that's not it," Navani said. "They might have united if the Sunmaker himself could have been bothered to settle on an heir. It's his fault." "He was off in the west," Gavilar said, leading his army to further glory. Alethkar and Herdaz weren't enough for him. He wanted the whole world. "So it was his ambition," Sadeas said. "No, his greed," Gavilar said quietly. "What's the point of conquering if you're not going to ever just sit back and enjoy it? If you're never going to be satisfied? Shubreth's son Mashonalan, Sunmaker, even the hierarchy, they all stretched further and further until they collapsed. In all the history of mankind, has any conqueror decided they'd had enough? Has any man just said, you know, this is good, this is what I wanted, and then gone home? Right now, Dalinar said, what I want is to eat my storming steak. He held up the little knife, which was bent at the middle. Navani blinked. How in the Almighty's 10th name did you do that? I don't know. Gavilar stared with that distant, far-off look in his eyes, the look that was getting more and more common. Why are we at war, brother? This again? Dalinar said. Look, it's not so complicated. Can't you remember how it was back when we started? Remind me. Well, Dalinar said, wagging his bent knife, we look at this place here, this kingdom, and we realized, hey, all these people have stuff. And we figured, hey, maybe we should have that stuff. So we took it. Oh, Dalinar, Sadia said, chuckling, you are a gem. Don't you ever think about what it meant, though? Gavilar asked. A kingdom? Something grander than yourself? That's foolishness, Gavilar. When people fight, it's about the stuff, and that's it. Maybe, Gavilar said, maybe. There's something I want you to listen to. The codes of war from the old days, back when Alethkar meant something. Dalinar nodded absently as the serving staff entered with teas and fruit to close the meal. One tried to take his steak away, and he growled at her. As she backed off, Dalinar caught sight of something. A woman peeking into the room from the other feast hall. She wore a delicate, filmy dress of a pale yellow, matched by her blonde hair. He leaned forward, curious. She was 18, maybe 19. She was tall, almost as tall as an Alethi, and small of chest. In fact, there was a certain sense of flimsiness to her, as if she were somehow less real than an Alethi. The same went for her brother, with his slender build. But that hair, it made her stand out, like a candle's glow in a dark room. She scampered across the feast hall to her brother, who handed her a drink. She tried to take it with her left hand, which was tied inside a small pouch of yellow cloth. The dress didn't have sleeves, strangely. She kept trying to dine with her safe hand, Navani said, eyebrow cocked. Iole leaned down the table toward Dalinar, speaking conspiratorially. They go about half-clothed out in the far west, you know. Ririns, Iriali, Dereshi, they aren't as inhibited as these prim Alethi women. I bet she's quite exotic in the bedroom. Dalinar grunted. Then he finally spotted a knife, in the hand hidden behind the back of a server clearing Gavilar's plates. Dalinar kicked at his brother's chair, breaking the leg off and sending Gavilar toppling to the ground. The assassin swung at the same moment, clipping Gavilar's ear, but otherwise missing. The wild swing hit the table, driving the knife into the wood. Dalinar leapt to his feet, reaching over Gavilar and grabbing the assassin by the neck. He spun the would-be killer around and slammed him to the ground with a satisfying crunch. Still in no motion, Dalinar grabbed backward, yanked the knife from the table, then slammed it into the assassin's chest. Puffing, Dalinar stepped back and wiped the rainwater from his eyes. Gavilar sprang to his feet, shard blade appearing in his hand. He looked down at the assassin, then over at Dalinar. Dalinar kicked the assassin to be sure he was dead. Then he nodded to himself, righted his chair, and sat down. Then he leaned over and yanked the man's knife from his chest. Good blade. He washed it off in his wine, then cut off a piece of his steak and shoved it in his mouth. Finally. Good pork, Dalinar noted around the bite. Across the room, Toh and his sister were staring at Dalinar with looks that mixed awe and terror. Gavilar finally settled back down, waving away the guards who belatedly had rushed to help. Navani clutched his arm, obviously shaken by the attack. Again, everyone in the feast hall was gawking at the high table. Dalinar cut his steak again, shoving another piece in his mouth. What? He wasn't going to drink the wine he'd washed the blood into. He wasn't a barbarian. I know I've said that I wanted you to be free to make your own choice in regard to a bride, Gavilar said, leaning in. But I'll do it, Dalinar said, eyes forward. Navani was lost to him. He just needed to storming accept that. They're timid and careful, Navani noted. It might take time to persuade them. Oh, I wouldn't worry about that, Gavilar said, glancing back at the corpse. Dalinar is nothing if not persuasive. All right, guys, thank you very much. To forestall or to snipe at those questions you're going to ask, I should finish this book about June, and it'll take about a year for Tor to put it out, would be my guess. I'm sorry, they're big books, they take a long time to write. I'm looking forward to meeting you all upstairs, and I'm going to let the bookstore people tell you how to get your book signed.
Brandon.
If you guys would give us just a minute before you line up, I have a couple